State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy is joining us from his office on Beacon Hill today. How are you, Tacky?
Hey Joe, good morning. Actually, it's actually really early for me. It's about 10:15, give or take, on the 15th. We're halfway through March.
Unbelievable, but yes.
I'm sorry, October. I wish it was March.
Yes, we don't want to rush things along though, do we? And here we are still in the federal government shutdown.
Yeah, we're waiting to see how this continues to play out. October 15, interestingly enough, as you may have seen in news, is the supposed break dead deadline regarding pay for U.S. military. And also affects your Social Security. Those who are on Social Security are supposed to get your cost of living adjustment, your COLA calculation done based on the Consumer Price Index, which has been delayed, which the presidential administration, the Trump administration, has said that they're going to try to do something by next week, the 24th, 25th, sometime next week, on a CPI number. So Social Security can issue the cost of living adjustments for next year. And we'll see how that plays out, because obviously the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which receive enormous criticism, and the department has always been gutted already, has nobody working there, which means they have to find people who want to work there after they gutted the agency to provide some statistics. And I suspect you guys are probably thinking the same thing. Are these statistics reliable? And whether the Federal Reserve can rely on them for the next rate cut or rate freeze decision, but also for private industry. If you're doing like your wholesalers, your manufacturers, do also rely on these numbers to try to get projections in the economy regarding a supply chain. How much are they going to need to produce? What it's going to cost them, right? And of course, the trickle down effect to you and I regarding top end of the chain, trying to figure out the costs. So a lot of this data that you may not think is relevant to you, because it probably isn't on a day-to-day basis, will have an effect on you as the bigger picture manufacturers, wholesalers, suppliers, shippers, importers, exporters, use this information to try to help project out where the economy is going to go. And of course, at your Social Security, this data is extremely important for you in March.
Right. Yeah, I just read an article today that the average cost of a new car has exceeded $50,000 for the first time ever. Part of that because of the expiring federal tax credits for electric vehicles, but also tariffs.
Yeah, I talked about this back in April. This stuff isn't something that appears right away, which is why you got to ignore the talking heads and the politicians, ironically, being a politician, that, oh, nothing's happened yet. No, you got to give time for a public policy to mature and percolate and evolve over time. And then, if I say the sky wasn't falling, immediately after changing something, and then the sky falls 6 months later, then, did you actually believe the sky fell when I told you it wasn't? All right. Public policy is always the same thing. You got to give it time to kind of mature. And one of the mistakes I've made about the tariffs as well is that we don't have tariffs hitting simultaneously and instantaneously, meaning the so-called Liberation Day, was everything hitting like at a single date. Then they keep changing the deadlines, then moving forward. Then they're negotiating with the biggest economies first, which all have different deadlines and all different tariffs. And you still got the pending issues of Mexico and Canada, which isn't as widespread in some ways, but widespread in other ways. And then you have negative economic impacts that's associated with it. And this basically we are in a trade war. I don't care what anyone says. The Chinese government has made a conscious decision not to buy U.S. soybeans. They're taking $0 in soybeans. And if you're not aware, the United States is like number 2 manufacturer of soybeans, I think, after Brazil. I think Brazil may be number 1 now. So, I had this prediction back in the winter time before Trump got inaugurated that there's going to be a massive negative impact on agriculture. And I was talking to some friends at the table, and my question, he's a financial guy. We're just talking about actually my financial problems because I have my own retirement planning to do. And we're discussing, how this will work. And I was like, agriculture is up first because we're monster exporter of raw materials. Export a lot of raw iron, export a lot of agriculture, we export a lot of oil. We're a raw exporter. People don't realize how much export. We've always been a raw exporter since the colonial era. And agriculture is a big part of our economy because we overgrow. We produce more than we can consume in this country. And, that's where there are other supply chains available they were talking about Brazil in particular, which has ramped up their agriculture. And Brazil's got a 50% tariff right now, even though they're a supply, they have a supply, they have a trade deficit with us. We have a trade surplus with Brazil, and we have a 50% tariff in the country. So when you have a trade surplus on a country with a tariff on with 50%, you're only hurting U.S. folks because they give us more than we give them.
Right.
I'm sorry, we give them more stuff than we take.
Right.
But it's, your coffee price is probably the thing you've seen gradually rise, but it has been like an instant hit, but it's been a slowly growth on your bills. And when you look at your bills over the course of months, you can see where the tariff impact is in specific things you buy every single day, not periodically. So yeah, I mean, this thing's gonna be nuts. And you're right about car. I mean, cars are generally speaking inflationary adjusted, meaning that the price of new cars don't rise very quickly. I mean, if you think about before COVID, models of similar size do go up in price year to year, but they don't go up like 15%.
Right.
You see like a 2% adjustment, and over time they kind of level out for a while certain models, different sizes, kind of equalize. Like, remember we used to call the Ford Taurus as like the standard that became the Toyota Camry and so forth.
Yeah, the four-door sedans, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, remember when Camrys were small cars at one time?
Yes.
And now they're the big cars.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. The big cars used to be like the Crown Victorias and Lincoln Town Cars, things like that.
Yeah, so if you're under 40, you're like, what are you talking about? But no, the point is that the car industry has always been to make the price structure, try not to fluctuate too high, reflecting the popular models and the desires of consumers on size and features over time. And as things, for example, like all cars have rear defrosters. I'm old enough to remember my dad's first car had no rear defroster.
No, for sure, yeah.
But that's built into the car price. It was a little bit, but it doesn't like jack it up huge, right? So, same with car safety. So the fact that you have the expiring credits of EVs create a spike in EV car sales over the last couple of months, which is going to be gone. And we talked about the fact that tariffs is not just the whole car; it's all the parts in the cars are tariffed differently. And I was with the Automobile Association repair guys, gave me a Legislator of the Year award, and they're impacted by that too because they got to buy parts, whether it be third party or OEM. They're all manufactured at a global level, whether it be some made in U.S., some in Canada, some in Mexico, some from overseas, and compile it into inventory in their little shops. And independent repair shops in particular don't have exactly giant warehouses of storage.
Right. No, they typically have to order as they need it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly it. So there's that ripple effect to the repair guys too. So yeah, I would tell you all just keep anticipating that the price will continue to rise as this continues. And as all the people bought all their stuff during the spring and midsummer, stockpiling, try to keep prices stable for consumers. That will be coming to end as we come into winter, unless there is a new deal in place or a changing deal, which who knows, of the 200 countries in the world that the U.S. recognizes, I think it's really like 196. I mean, you only cut a deal with like 11 major economies and you still have the rest of the world, all of which the majority don't have a lot of money.
Right.
About it to buy our stuff. They have to figure what to do with.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Is it showing up in state government at all yet, Tacky?
A good question. I don't do purchasing. You guys may be or may not be aware, we are like any other business. We have to buy paper in bulk. We buy office supplies in bulk. We do have a hiring freeze throughout state government. The House of Representatives also has a hiring freeze. Speakers were told us over the summertime that they're reevaluating the entire House budget, meaning pens to people. So yeah, I mean, thankfully most of the stuff we use electronic, but we still use pens and paper here. We just use our computers more.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we're already in that mode, and the administration's been in that mode since midsummer as well. So we're getting ready to see what the fiscal impact is, and just remind folks. People think that the payroll and the offices are the biggest expenses. I mean, half the budget is really healthcare driven, of which almost 30% is Medicare, Medicaid, which you guys know is Mass Health. and you throw in local aid, I mean, somewhere between 40, close to 48, 49% of the budget is a combination of local aid for cities and towns and basic Medicare, Medicaid, and associated healthcare associated items. So you toss in higher education, the prisons, the court systems, the debt service, and our debt service is under 3% of the budget most years. Before you know it, discretionary part of a budget is only 1/3. It's probably 30% of a $62 billion budget that's actually discretionary.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of similar to a municipal budget. It's a lot of fixed costs already, or union negotiated costs.
No, same thing in the federal government. I mean,
Right.
we eliminate, let's say you got rid of everybody working government, including myself, just all the payroll. That would probably be under 20% of the budget. If you literally
Right.
eliminate every human being, just no people.
Yep.
And leave you just the programs in place, that gives you put it in scope, it's probably less than 20%.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. So
Actually, you know what? I could actually tell you the exact number.
Oh, okay. This is live calculations here, folks, on Tacky
Yeah,
Talk.
because it thought I'd be, the camera's gonna shake a bit. Because uh let me type this in here.
Of course,
Because
you have the state budget at your fingertips. Of course, you would.
actually even better, the Office of Payroll is the comptroller has a payroll calculator.
Okay.
So for fiscal year 25, oops, is not complete. So we're going to do fiscal year 24.
Okay.
So fiscal year 25 is put in process. So according to the state comptroller, and the comptroller controls all our payrolls and everything,
Yep.
the complete and total payroll for FY24 was $10.26 billion.
Okay. Out of a what, $60+ billion budget?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what, if you do some fast calculation,
It's like a fifth of the budget, something like that.
yeah, so about 20%.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
wasn't too far off.
No,
So-
you were right on, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, about give or take a few percentage points. So yeah, so if you eliminate all the humans, and let's say AI takes over the world in this business, you're only going to shave 20% of the budget. Give yourself the scope of how much of our budget is programmatic.
Right. Gives you a good sense for how the money is allocated. Yeah.
Yeah, and federal government, as you all discovered, the same problem. The vast majority of the budget is driven by Medicaid and Medicare and debt service, then followed by the military. So even if you got rid of the entire military, you still couldn't clean up the debt service.
Also very telling. Yes. So we'll see what happens in the short and long term.
I agree. I couldn't predict what's going to happen. I mean, the economic impacts on a federal shutdown is showing 0.1% GDP negative impact per week against the economy that's closing in on $30 trillion now. It's like creeping up to 30 trillion. That's really a drop in the bucket in the size of the state's the U.S. economy. Tourism, again, is about 3% of GDP, give or take, but it's regional, right? Certain parts of the country is more impacted by tourism, and National Park Service is one of them. I think I may have mentioned last week. I had an email from a family out of state asking about visiting the Adams mansions, which you can't visit the mansion or the birth houses because it's National Park Service. However, the Church of Presidents is not National Park Service. That's privately controlled, and it's still open for tours. So obviously out of state folks are disappointed, and also some confusion because not everything in Massachusetts is controlled by the National Park Service, which is historic. For example, the State House is not. And if you walk through the Boston Commons and Boston Gardens, that's run by the city of Boston, right?
Right.
So it's a little bit of a hodgepodge in this region between municipal, private, and state control, as well as federal control over different historical locations. So, yeah, I mean, this region is going to have a greater negative impact on the tourism, which we already felt already since COVID, and approximately 25,000 federal workers are impacted by the shutdown right now. And if they turn into more layoffs, well, that's just going to add to unemployment numbers.
Yeah, we're right, and that has a cumulative effect too, because if they're not being paid, they can't contribute to the economy.
And I don't know how many vendors are impacted either. I mean,
Right.
I couldn't tell how many Massachusetts businesses are federal vendors.
Yeah. We talk a little bit about the governor's statements regarding the Department of Public Utilities this week.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm not sure how this is going to work. I mean, well, I'm not trying to bore you guys too much on this. So when the time you go after utility companies regarding a utility company rate is when they open a rate case, meaning generally every 5 years, give or take, when utility comes in to reopen their case, they will ask for a rate change. Generally, they ask for an increase, not a decrease.
Right.
That is the opportunity for the Attorney General's office to do investigation into utility companies' expenditures and proposals and plans. And the DPU is basically the administrative law judges. They're the judges in those cases. And of course, the group that's proponents is the utility companies. Now, the AG is obviously perceived as the opponent. That is only half true. Stuff that makes sense, the AG's office, since I did work there, we'll accept stuff that we know makes sense. We'll combat stuff that we question whether or not those expenditures are justifiable, which impacts ratepayers. So that's one part. Now, the DPU theoretically could do another deferral. So that's what they did last winter.
Mhm.
They asked utility companies to reduce the rates a little bit and deferred their recovery to a future time, thereby not violating the order at DPU on the rate case.
So kick the can down the road, essentially.
Yeah, because once the order has been issued by the DPU on that's rates that are set for your utility bills that was litigated between the AG's office and the utility company, then that's locked in.
That's a law, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this essentially is a law. It's a regulatory law, but it's a
Right.
law of some sort. And then the only way it can be reopened is that the utility comes in and reopen it, and then relitigate the whole issue again, or they work out a deal where, regulatorily speaking, they could kick the can down the road and recover later on for a short-term loss now, but I don't know what the other caveats associated with it.
Yeah.
The other stuff in utility bills mandated by the state. So, for example, we talk about Mass Save, which is the energy efficiency charge as a distribution rate. That is approved by DPU. That is not a utility company issue. That is a creation of the state. DPU is the one who makes the final approval from this Energy Efficiency Council.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's things like renewable energy credits, solar energy credits, other things extremely popular, believe it or not, with many folks, more than I ever realized regarding moving to green energy. And I am not sure how the DPU is going to be able to they can't remove charges that are required by statute.
Right.
And only left with delaying or deferring your rate changes with utility companies. So I'm not sure where they're going with this. I'm not saying they can't find ways to reduce your distribution rate, but I'm having difficulty figuring out how they do it legally.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The concerning part is that the rates they have control over relate to updating the infrastructure. So do they put a pause on that and let systems deteriorate?
Well, it's deferred. Well, yeah. I mean, for example, capital cost utility companies. Okay, let's not try to get you too deep in the weeds again. Let's try to keep this very broad.
Okay. Okay.
So how this works is that you want to, if you're a utility company and yes, you want to put in a whole bunch of new wires, you put in new copper wires down your street. And let's say it's going to do the whole city of Quincy. Let's say, for example, that's going to cost you $1 billion.
Okay.
Random number, people. I say $1 billion for random number. And say it's going to take 10 years to do the whole city, random, right? For easy math. And that means you're going to spend about $1 billion a year, give or take. It may not be $1 billion, maybe like $500 million 1 year, $1.5 billion next year.
Yep.
It depends on how the project rolls, because you all know that it's never an equal amount. It's based on where you're in construction as the dollar amounts are spent each month over the course of a $1 billion budget. How that will be recovered is that it'll be already inside the rate system, where the utility company is basically borrowing money, whether it be from shareholders or they have to acquire outside money to bond.
Yep.
To build that $1 billion. And then obviously they owe the bondholders interest rate, and they also owe the shareholders a return, which is the rate of return that the DPU sets as part of the total rate mechanism. So when they set the rate mechanism, whether it be a separate one for capital or one built into the monster entire rate system, they will get that rate of return. So why do I say that? Let's say your rate returns 10%, but you issue the bonds and you owe the bondholder 5%. The company gets 5%, the bondholder gets 5%. I know this is oversimplifying, by the way. I'm making this it's much more complicated than I just described, but oversimplifying it. So everyone gets paid, right? And that's kind of how it would work. The reality is the utility company would be looking for close to the 10% rate of return, despite having to pay the bondholders. It's a little more intricate math than I described, but that basically sums it up, right? Because if the company doesn't make profit, they can't pay the bonds,
Right.
can't pay the interest on the bonds. And that will be amortized over the course of, let's say, 30 years.
Okay.
So you issue a 30-year bond, for example.
Yep.
You as a customer would be paying back that bond over a 30-year time period,
Yep.
plus
Yep.
the interest on the bond, plus the rate of return again for the company who's now holding that bond, who's paying it on ratepayer behalf, plus they want their profits.
Right.
I'm oversimplifying. It's
But that makes it clearer though. Yeah.
It's clear, but there's a lot of nuances. Trust me, it isn't a straight up 5% rate of return goes to the bond. It's not that simple.
No, I'm sure it's by fractions. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but they do better they get a lot more than 5% return on the utility company side. So
Yeah.
It's a little more intricate what I'm describing. So, but bottom line is they amortize. So they say, I'm going to do a bit of a project. We're going to amortize it for 30 years. It's built into the rate system that's a 30-year mechanism built in, so the bonds are paid off and the interest is paid off, and then the company also makes their profit.
Okay. All right. Yeah. The thing that confused me about the governor's statement was expanding solar energy, but I mean, that's still optional for consumers to access.
Well, most of our solar energy isn't purchased inside Massachusetts. If you're head of supply, you're purchasing solar from somewhere else. And most people don't realize that as long as you're inside a certain transmission system, which for us basically ends around the Mississippi and goes to Halifax, it's about 40% of the country by geography. Your electron's an electron. No one knows which electron's which electron. One's electron.
That's right.
It's in the transmission. It's still an electron. It's not like one has a label that says solar and one has a label that says oil. It's electrons. So it's a really a counting mechanism. So if, companies that provide energy into the grid and how much, and then they don't have sell that much because that's how much has gone into the grid. When you buy solar, it could be solar from Iowa, for example, and then it's gone through the wires to Massachusetts. But for a counting mechanism, they only can generate X amount of solar anyway. So that's how much they can sell. It's a little bit of, again, you can tell this is all like spreadsheets and math on energy. It's a lot more math than people give it credit for.
Right, yes.
In Massachusetts, your solar efficiency is under 30%.
Okay.
With New England, I mean, look outside, right? You're going to get some energy today on a cloudy day, but you're not going to get the same energy if it was, 2 weekends ago when it was 80 degrees and not a cloud in the sky, right?
Right. Yeah, it's not dependable. Yeah.
That's correct. I mean, they're supposed to go to the southwest part of the country where you get up to almost 75 to 80% efficiency, not just because there's less clouds in the sky, but there's also longer day. The closer you get to the equator, the day's a little longer.
Yep.
Then you also got a lot of dust, so they use a lot of water because they got to keep those things clean, which is a whole different environmental and ecology issue. People forget that solar panels do get dirty and stuff gets dusty. This is the problem with things like the Mars rover. It was solar panel driven, had to figure out how to keep the solar panels clear, and the Mars does. Same principle applies in solar panels anywhere. And particularly if you're in a very dusty region, you got to use water, and water is supplied, particularly in areas that are like a desert. So there is always going to be a ecological component to renewable energy. It's just different types of ecological impacts. And I'm not saying it's wrong or it's bad. It's just a fact. Panels get stuff on them. You got to get it off them to keep them efficient.
Right.
It's very simple.
Yeah. Okay. And then
I'm not sure how that would work.
Okay. All right. I mean, the only thing the legislature would have control over is the state statutes, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could change the statute regarding distribution rate, mandatory charges.
Right.
We do have the renewable energy portfolio that requires us to reach a certain amount of renewable energy standards by like 2050. I mean, it's a whole moving target. But generally try to do it like 0.5% to 1% a year. So our fingers did that our portfolio has part of energy, renewable energy as part of our portfolio, depending on availability. I mean, it's down to competitive supply. So if you want to buy solar energy or the renewables as part of competitive supply, I mean, you can buy your own energy from a third party supplier
Right.
at off the utilities rate. You can do that yourself. Or in the case of
Mhm.
Quincy, we're a municipal aggregate now. And you can either take the lowest rate, Summit Renewable Energy, or most renewable energy. If you remember when you got that letter from the city, if you got mostly renewable energy, it was actually much higher rate if you didn't take any renewable energy as part of your energy supply. But but I think you're locked in now if you're already in municipal aggregate, so you can't actually get out of it because you're
I
locked in.
think that's right.
So we still got basically another year left in municipal aggregate, and once that municipal aggregation contract ends, you have to opt out, not opt in. You have to opt out so you can go to a third party supplier.
Right, right, right. Although you're probably getting the best rate possible right now if you're in that program.
Most likely, it's
Yeah.
it's I remember it's like 14 cents,
Mm.
somewhere around 14 to 15 cents, depending on which choice you have.
Yep.
Was it 12? I can't remember now. It's I have to look it up. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you can get real time rates online regarding
Yep.
uh energy costs. However, the number you see today may not be the number you see tomorrow.
That's right.
So this is why you got to be cautious about energy price discussions because it's an aggregate cost over a certain time period. It has to be
Mhm.
compared to other aggregate costs over a certain time period. So let's say I'm doing all oil energy for electricity. You have to look at that price number and make sure it's 100% oil between two time periods.
Mhm.
And say windmills and look at the same thing for
Mhm.
time periods. It's very hard to get pure because no one really does pure fossil or pure renewable. It's actually now a combination of both because of reliability. You want more energy sources for more reliability on both sides. And renewable powers have become a lot cheaper over the course of 30 years because renewable energy credits and greater demand and more capital costs have been paid off because they've been around long enough to have capital costs paid off, which then results in savings for consumers. So there's a lot of factors why renewables gotten a little bit cheaper.
Right.
Well, actually, a lot cheaper, a whole lot cheaper than it was 30 years ago. But you got to be careful when you do your comparisons of energy because you got to pick the time zones, you got to pick the rate average over that time zone and look what you're paying, but also at the same time zone, not not this moment of.
Yeah, yeah. And we're just talking electricity right now, not natural gas.
Yeah, natural gas is subject to the same issues, but there's more they're actually more subject to macro impacts.
Yeah.
But natural gas supply is generally pretty steady because unlike electricity, which has a different kind of ebb and flow to it, because like obviously here in the summertime, you use a lot more electricity because of air conditioning.
Hmm.
Natural gas goes down, you're basically down to just cooking use and dryers at
Hmm.
this point and backup electrical generation. In the wintertime, the opposite happens. Obviously, our heating goes up, so natural gas prices go up, and also the supply need goes up.
Right.
So it's the seasonality of natural gas is very different revealed than it is on electrical usage on seasonality.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
For natural, like for example, electric cars don't impact natural gas the same way. It impacts natural gas on generation of electricity, but generates going to generate some electricity. More natural gas does not create more generation at a
Right.
gas turbine. But if you have more electric cars plugging into homes and walls, that has a different impact that's not just seasonal on electric utility systems, which then changes how utilities have to get electricity into this grid to accommodate, let's say, 10,000 new electric cars charging at the same time.
Right. Right. That'll change the benchmark, depending on supply and demand. Yeah.
Yeah, a gas and electric, when you look at it, it's very different approaches. You can't look at them as identical utilities or suppliers the same way. It's very different systems.
What is going on at the State House today, Tacky?
Today's actually a pretty quiet day. We're doing
Oh,
essentially the closeout supplemental budget for FY25, which I like to refer to as a reconciliation. So at this point, all tax collections have come in for fiscal year 25. We basically compare what the estimates were against real numbers, and then we reconcile. It
sure.
literally is like balancing a checkbook.
Yep.
And then we always move money or accounts between governor's offices because the governor can't move money between accounts. Only we can move money between accounts. So you got a little bit of that going on. And then, some outside sections on technical corrections and issues that, that need to be addressed today. Um, you know, basically it's really boring, which I'm saying. This is an accounting day, people. It's not exactly called thrilling public policy. So yeah, that's essentially we're gonna be voting on essentially closing the books.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. It's an ongoing process, it sounds like.
Yeah, tax actually today's also October 15th. It's the last day for business tax collections at the IRS. We don't actually get that much postponement on tax collection, so the numbers are good. And the state auditor had already confirmed in September that we didn't trigger that weird law regarding refunds because the tax revenues exceeded actual wages.
Mhm.
So
So no rebate, folks.
no rebate. The ones in the lottery situation, rebate is not happening. So that's kind of what we're doing. It's not going to be a very exciting day, to be honest with you.
Well, I know you're always meeting with some foreign consulate or constituents coming by.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, actually, yesterday was Diwali Day, the State House. Diwali is the festival of lights in the Indian community, especially among Hindu, Buddhist, and Sikh in those religious communities. And that was a great day at State House. And it was good to bring more culture down, but also the Indian government was there, and Indian government is now opening its first consulate in Boston.
Oh,
To talk to the Indian consulate, you had to go to New York.
I'm surprised there hadn't been one since. Wow.
I'm very surprised too. And it's not easy to get a consulate open. Again, the US State Department has to authorize it. And the US State Department actually also has to work with whether or not they need a reciprocal consulate office in the country that's asking.
Right.
So generally you get one, I get one, but it depends on the country, right? If you're a friendly country, the State Department has different attitudes, right?
Yep.
So if you're not aware, Indian South Asians are the fastest growing population in the state for the last 20 odd years. Many different reasons for that. But it is a substantial size population now. And having a consulate from India serving the New England area is great. And the consulate corps, I think like up to 54. So we have that going on next week. The Hokkaido government's coming to Massachusetts celebrate, I believe it's 35th anniversary of economic cooperation with Massachusetts, I believe. So next Wednesday, I'll be hosting them with the Asian Caucus, and I think Jeevan's going to be there from Office of Tourism and Trade with us to talk about issues that are impacting them and us. And there's a reception that evening at the Japanese consulate home, which I'm on a 50-50 going right now. I'm not sure what my schedule looks like next week, but that's next Wednesday. So, and we had Korea Day last Friday, actually, not thinking about it. It was the Korean population here came to the house last Friday to celebrate, Korean culture and such as well. And again, I can tell October is very busy because October is also the month where the Chinese emperor was overthrown by Chiang Kai-shek in 1910 to end imperial rule. So October is actually a pretty busy month for more than one country celebrating their own local history. So yeah, it's a lot going on. And next Monday, we can talk about more about it. Next Monday, I have my last public hearing on consumer protection professional licensure on time bills, and try to get my bills out of committee by mid November, pursuant to the rules. And then I got to go to Amherst for Asian Business Economic Council tour of Asian business in Amherst. So between being a member of the House Asian Caucus and obviously chair a committee that does a lot of professional licensing, I was asked to come sit at a round table at UMass Amherst, as well as visit some businesses in Amherst next Tuesday and discuss how things are going out there. As I like to say, sometimes those of us in Greater Boston tend to forget there's something else outside of Greater Boston.
Very true.
And Asian population is very dispersed through the whole state. So we got that going on. So yeah, I'm pretty busy.
Have you heard at all from the Quincy social service agencies regarding the federal impact on them yet?
We're waiting for more information to come up. I think I mentioned last time, Father Bill's is 125% capacity currently, so the winter capacity. I'm sorry, 125 beds, so that winter capacity, and they've been asked to try to slash 25% of the budget. Project Bread's already informed us that there are 900 persons per caseload, so 900 people applying for SNAP programs per caseworker, and they have a workforce problem at the SNAP program. And the feds are shifting the cost, which I told over and over again they were going to do this to us, where as opposed to paying 50-50 on a federal program on employees, we end up paying 75-25. We pay 75, they pay 25% on those employees, or which are understaffed to begin with, which can cost us tens of millions of dollars on staff up. And then they set up new metrics, which I'm not sure any state's going to be able to do a great job with, but I mean, it could cost us like another $300 million in additional cost shift on food stamp programs. So, I just mentioned that last week. We just emphasized the fact that these are real people, real numbers, that real impact. And again, supermarkets, about 20% of their revenue comes from SNAP benefits. So,
Right.
We shall see. I mean, the housing authorities already told us that they changed how they're going to reimburse housing authorities. They generally set the budget for the housing authority and give the money up front. Now they're going to give the money after the fact, and maybe they'll pay you back. So there's a lot of question there. Homeless programs and domestic violence programs are up in the air as well. The Mass Commission Against Discrimination has already told us that 20% of the funding is federal government. And any state that has any kind of anti-discrimination laws regarding sexual orientation is not getting any money.
Any money at all, really.
Yeah, so basically that's going to hit all the states because we're in the 21st century, and I don't care what state you live in. All states have anti-discrimination laws, and sexual orientation is definitely one of the areas which all states have some kind of anti-discrimination law.
Right.
So, yeah, it's interesting in the sense that the Eisenhower administration and the FDR administration really pushed forward hard that if the feds give you money, we're trying to create a uniform system around the country. The feds are trying to make us do. Whether it be road uniformity, for example, we changed our numbers on our interstates because we weren't conforming for so long.
That's right.
Because of federal funding, we want the federal money, or the line stripes, on the federal roads, or in the case of things like food stamp SNAP programs. I mean, they work a cost sharing. In the case of things like Medicaid, Medicare, we have expanded healthcare, like we're the first, universal healthcare state. In the way it's a private public thing, but I mean, mandated health insurance in Massachusetts when Obamacare came into effect, or Romney Care, depending who you want to talk to.
I was just going to say Mitt Romney, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, Romney/Obamacare.
Right.
They offered more financial incentives for us to comply with those programs away from ours. It's an incentive to try to create uniformity among 50 states on the federal standard, because the federal government under separation of powers cannot tell a state what to do, but they can incentivize by giving us money. Some take money, some do not. For example, New Hampshire pretty much takes no federal money. I say they don't, but they almost no federal money for the road system. That's why there's so many toll roads in New Hampshire.
Interesting. Yeah.
Connecticut actually had a line striping problem at one point. I think they had a compliance issue many, many moons ago. Yeah, this is trivia I keep in my head. Regardless of the point. The point is what I'm getting at is that this is the inverse. Now you got a Trump administration that's actually doing the opposite. They're trying to change our public policy by reversing federal policy, by taking money away from us to change our state laws to do what they want, as opposed to creating a uniform system.
Right. I see. Yeah.
The federal government historically has been trying to dangle money in front of states to create a uniform system around the country on a public policy the feds want. This is the opposite. You got a situation where the federal government's taking money away from states, but not for the purpose of creating a uniform system.
Well, although it's still using money as a negotiating tool, right?
That's correct, but it's contrary public purpose.
Right.
The public purpose policy is not consistent in the past federal policies, where we want you all you states, I want you all to look consistent in a specific public interest as interstate commerce, particularly if it's interstate commerce. But here's the opposite. They're going to create patchworks of policies that in the past, the federal government wanted a uniform looking one.
Right. Yeah. I can't see Massachusetts changing its laws to comply. Yeah.
No, I don't think a lot of states are. I think a lot of states can be, flipping around. I mean, like, for example, Rio ID, we're one of the last states to go into Rio ID
Yeah.
with a little symbol on your card to get on a plane. And, the incentivization was that you couldn't fly unless you had that down there.
Hmm.
As long as we're able to get enough time in to print new driver's licenses, it didn't matter if we were first or last to do it. It's all about timing of your driver's license. And every state has a different driver's license printing system. It's not like before, but they want us to have a uniform looking driver's license in the sense they want a real ID on it for the purpose of air travel. That was the carrot.
Yeah.
Right. So, eventually we all got there together at different times, but you don't have to be first if you don't need to just accept, because they're not reimbursing us for those changes in license plates. We're paying for it.
Right.
So, I mean, if you don't need to do it now, so you're going to pay for it then, or can you wait till tomorrow to pay for it when you actually have to do it?
Right. As long as you get there, right?
As long as you get there, right? I mean, this is what I consider common sense. But this is a very different federal government and how they're pursuing public policy by actually creating mechanisms to create non-uniformity by creating a different type of incentive to discourage a uniform system.
Yeah, so it's divisive at the least. Yeah.
Yeah, what you said initially is what a lot of people think. It's to make us do stuff by giving us money. This is actually the opposite. It's trying to give us money from not doing something.
Right. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's very different. And again, it's going to create a patchwork.
It's reverse psychology.
Kind of. Again, it's going to create a patchwork. And that's the Roe decision on the abortion issue created a patchwork.
That's right.
And it's going to create more patchworks where for the last most of the second half of the 20th century, the federal government was trying to create some uniformity. So citizens, residents of Massachusetts and residents of California in certain areas have the same idea what's going on, right? And that's why your driver's license is good across state lines. You're
the country, yeah.
Across state lines, right?
Yeah.
So there's certain essential components, right? But if they start patchworking things, it becomes problematic. And this was the issue of gay marriage. People don't realize the federal government already legalized gay marriage. They did that very quietly right after Roe. The Republican-led House was like, we got to get this done, because they saw quickly that if you start patchworking marriage licenses around the country, which was already happening before the Supreme Court decision that the first time out reinforced it using tax code as the reason they allowed gay marriage as a uniform issue, because of their tax code. Republicans in Congress, after the Roe decision was overturned, had to move quick because they realized that the tap between the tax code, health issues, probate laws, you're too deep into gay marriage to reverse it all, because the ripple effect on the state and local government would have been absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's an issue when you're talking about gun laws as well.
Yeah, gun laws is an interesting issue because the Supreme Court historically has made Second Amendment rights a state issue, and they really talk about what's expansive or too extensive a ban, but they also always left the door open that the federal government itself has some say because of an interstate commerce component. So it's a really interesting problem where the courts have always had this funny balancing act saying this is a state right issue because of militias. It's a state right issue, the right to form a militia. And then on the flip side, it's an interstate issue because the firearms move between states. So that means the federal government has some regulatory control over interstate commerce. So it's interesting. That's always been an interesting, court decisions trying to balance out a state right against a federal interest on this issue. And but again, it stems not out of individual rights per se. It's really some of the state rights regarding militia formation, which is when you hang your hat on regarding state regulatory controls, but not so much regulatory controls that inhibits gun owners from being able to get their firearms. That's not too restrictive. So the courts always have this really funny balancing act between those three issues.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because I don't know, but I think states would have a problem trying to limit their formation of militias.
Well, it's an antiquated thing. I think we all agree upon that. I mean, I think Justice of the Peace at one time actually had law enforcement powers back in the colonial era.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what they call Justice of the Peace.
Ah, very good.
So that's like an ancient power that doesn't exist anymore, right? And
Interesting.
but you know, you're right. I mean, we live in a modern police force.
Yeah,
We have a modern military.
yeah,
Things with militias don't really live it anymore. And we talked about Finland the other time. I mean, how Finland is armed to the teeth, getting ready for Russian invasion.
right.
We're not that kind of country where, or we're not that country anymore where, you know, we need to be armed to the teeth every single moment. And everybody in the state and everybody in the country has a 2 years mandatory military training requirement. I mean,
Right.
most countries that are bordering another dangerous country require, you know, 18 months, 2 years of mandatory military training. When they hit a certain age, and some can't do it, go to college without it, and some people can defer and go to college afterwards. I mean, all Korea, Singapore, Finland, Taiwan. I mean, the list goes on. Man,
Israel.
Israel, they all have mandatory minimum military service requirements. You do not. We are in a country that does not. You don't understand how privileged we are and how safe we are because of that one difference between living here and some of these other border countries where there's much more higher threat of military invasion or terrorism or something like that. And they are having to have their own firearms because literally they could get called up in the service and you may need to bring your own firearm because the government may not have enough available.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It stems from the world wars.
Yeah, you know, we are very lucky people. We are
Mhm.
so lucky. And I think that is underappreciated by people about this stuff. You know, putting the second amendment right issue. I mean, you know, if you are told to be armed for potential invasion by a neighboring country, it's a very different conversation than home safety or hunting.
Oh, for sure. Yes, absolutely.
And
Puts
just
things in perspective. Yeah.
so it is. Again, I still believe we live in the best place in the world. I think we take it for granted. I don't think we fully appreciate as much as we should. But then again, I do have the privilege of talking to a lot of different folks in different places and learning about how things work other places. And, you know, there's some lessons to be learned from other people, I'd say
Yeah.
all the time. But it also puts in perspective of your own life here and, you know, and how much, you know, I do appreciate the opportunity to do this job and the opportunity to be in a relatively safe place to live.
Anything coming up in the district, Jackie?
This week, there's harvest festivals going on this weekend. I believe there's one in Hospital Hill on Saturday, and the Montclair Walson Neighborhood Association's having one up in Montclair. There's also there's the No Marching Kings things going on Saturday too.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Another one of those in City Hall. I got a wedding. My cousin's getting married on Friday. My uncle's flying in. I'm sorry, wedding Saturday. My uncle's flying in Friday. I'm hosting family. Not a lot of family, thankfully, but some this weekend. So Friday I will be unavailable. Available Saturday. It's a full wedding day starting in the early afternoon all the way
Okay.
late night. And of course, hosting family on Sunday as everyone's getting ready to go home. So it's a tacky family weekend.
Okay. So are you cooking?
Yeah, I think I am at some point. I'm not sure. The plans are kind of in flux a little bit. Not sure
Okay.
exactly what we're doing. My mom hasn't made some decisions, and it's a family thing, guys. You guys, I think, will relate.
Oh, that's good. The
I'll
weather
be
looks
in.
good at least.
Yeah, I'll be in the studio with you, Mark. Not you, but with Mark on State View
Oh, okay.
on a Friday early afternoon. And I just
I'll stick my head in and say hello.
yeah, I want to shout out to my friend Walter Jacobs, who's finally retiring from UMass, working UMass Police for I think over 40 years at this point. So
Wow.
shout out to Walden. Congratulations on your retirement. I'll believe it when I see your pension check. Um, he's been working so long, I don't remember when he wasn't working.
Hmm.
But also, you know, he has a retirement party. I'm not sure I'm going to get to everything. That's kind of my problem right now. The family obligations are taking priority.
Sure. Right. Well, we'll see you out about, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll be out and about. It looks like we're okay weather for a bit. I still got a dead tree in the backyard I gotta deal with, and I got some big dead tree limbs that came down around the house. They're not massive, thankfully. I can lift these and drag them to the backyard and cut them up. But the windstorm the last 2 days, we were first real true 2 day nor'easter we've had in a long time.
Yes, got some much needed rain, thankfully.
Yeah, and I got a lot of dead debris, tree debris.
Yeah, it
All
was a
over.
messy storm. Yeah.
It was very messy, and I gotta deal with that too. I gotta find time somehow, maybe Sunday, to get that stuff off the lawn. But yeah, I heard the thud sound. I just thankfully wasn't hit the house sound.
Yes, exactly. All righty. Well, we'll let you go, but how do we get a hold of you?
617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. We're at the State House, as you can tell, in room 42. State House is open for tours. You got friends and family visiting. Definitely come by during the weekday hours for a tour of the State House. We are at tackey.chan, tackey.chan at amherst.gov, tackey.chan at amherst.gov. We do check the emails. I do look at them all. We prioritize our constituent services, and the unemployment email just popped up when we were talking on my left-hand corner here. So unemployment continues to be a real concern as we're getting those constituent calls. We also have State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook and Instagram. You can follow us in pictures of my comings and goings to some of these events around the State House. We do have tackichan.org, which is a resource page, and there's actually a contact page there that you can do that if you don't want to email me directly. Either way, I'll get it. And then we have emulature.gov. Again, I always encourage people, use the website, look up the information, create an account. You don't need to call me. Use the information on the website is about 30 seconds ahead of what I see it, I think. I think our internal systems and the websites are connected. So when the clerk updates theirs, I get updated internally as well. There's no time delay. So it's not like you call me, you're going to get a head start of information. It's already on the web by the time I see it. And of course, you can email Joe at qatv.qatv.org. Anything you want to talk about, or Joe's very happy to entertain questions and comments about what you want to do. So that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much. We'll catch up with you next week.
We'll catch up with you next week.